Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at all the books that I read for the month of May. So let's jump in.
What we do here is go back.
So for the month of May, I read a total of 15 books. I read some good ones. I read some very anticipated new releases. So I'm super excited to be chatting about some of these books. I started off the month with a book that I was just so eager to read. It was Near the Bone by Christina Henry. It is my first Christina Henry book that I read. I have a couple on my TBR that I've had for a while, but Near the Bone, when I saw it on NetGalley, it was just so inviting. Starting from the cover, it's like a very dark blue cover, and blue is one of my favorite colors. It was just so inviting, and when I read the synopsis, I was sold. Here we are following this girl, Maddie, and she lives in the middle of the mountains, in the middle of the woods with her husband, William. When we see her first arrive on the scene, she's the one that we open up the book with. She's going to check some traps for food, and she notices some weird occurrences. But at that moment, you get the sense that she's either being abused by this William dude. I can't remember if we realize he is her husband at the beginning of the book at that moment, but all you know is that she's kind of like stressed out because she's trying to make it back to the cabin before he like loses his shit. And sure enough, he is abusive to her. She is super afraid of him. She doesn't remember anything about her life in the past. She doesn't remember anything from her childhood. And, you know, she's in constant fear, living in constant fear and agony with her husband. But one day, these three strangers show up to her house, which she finds super weird because, like I said, they live on a mountain in the middle of nowhere. And you get the sense that William wants it this way because he's abusive to his wife. And after these three strangers show up in the middle of the scene, like, everything explodes and everything hits the fan. There's this monster that those three people are chasing. It's like this myth. And Maddie has heard this monster all of a sudden after years and years and years of living on this area. It's the first time that she hears these kind of cries. So they're trying to battle this monster at the same time at battling her husband, William. It was a fun ride. I will say that I was going into this book, and I don't even know why, because I hadn't even heard anybody reviewing the book prior to me reading it. All I knew, I guess, is that I was rating this book by the cover, by the feels that the covers made me feel, and obviously the synopsis. But I was a little bit let down, not in a really bad way, but I thought this was going to be a 5-star read for me, and it wasn't. Although it was really good, I just felt like it was missing something for me. I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars, and I can't pinpoint what it was about the book that I didn't like because it's very atmospheric and the whole storyline is pretty interesting. I like the whole abusive relationship and someone trying to survive this abusive relationship. And the whole setting was perfect, but I just can't pinpoint what it was. I don't know if it was the writing, although I thought the writing was good, so I don't know why I would think that. Either way, it was enjoyable. It wasn't like the worst book that I have ever read, but I know that a lot of people are rating this book 5 stars, so I think I'm in the minority with my rating and with my thoughts on it. I heard that her other books are better, so I do want to continue reading all her other works. But for this one, I think I had my expectations too high after reading the synopsis and being so intrigued by it. So 3.5, still not a bad rating. I highly recommend people read this because I have an unpopular opinion with being disappointed by it. Next, I went in with a bang with Teeth by Brian King. I don't know if you guys know, but Brian King is one of my favorite authors. He has just been added to the list after I read The Conqueror Worms, and I want to read everything by him. He has a large backlist, and so I don't know if I'll ever get to all of his books, but I would really hope to. I've already bought a few more since reading The Conqueror Worms, but this was a new release for him. This release, I believe it was June 1st, and I was able to get an arc of it. I read it early, but I just had to have this cover in my collection. Here we are following vampires, and I want to read to you guys one of my most favorite parts of this book, and the minute or the second, the millisecond that I read this line, I knew this was going to be a 5-star book for me. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I loved it. He says, Vampires do not fucking sparkle. That is on the first page of the novella, and I just thought that was brilliant. It made me laugh. A lot of this book made me laugh. It was really creepy at times, but here we are following a man. You know that he has a daughter, and I forget what happened with his wife. I think he's separated or divorced or whatever, but he gets together with a group of his friends, and you know that they are trying to make extra money. So one of them has the idea, there is like this shack in the middle of his land, or I don't know if it's his personal land. I think it's his personal land, but somewhere on the land he has a lot of acreage. There's like this shack, and they're gonna use it to create something to make extra money with. But the surprise that they get when they reach the shack is just, it's unexpected. It was such a fun time. Like I said, there's like witty dialect in between all of it. It's creepy, it's atmospheric. I loved everything about this. I loved the group of men friendship that was going on there. I think a couple of them were related. I mean, it wasn't like 15 or anything. I think it was like 4 or 5 of them, but I liked their dynamic and just the way everything happened. If you like vampires, I think you would really like this. This is one of those books that when you finish, you're like, oh, okay, it was really good, but it's one of those that really sit with you, and it festers within you with feelings and emotions. I loved it so much. Needless to say, I gave this one 5 stars. Next, I read another arc for NetGalley. I mean, I just killed it with NetGalley this month. I think I just read these 2 books, but whatever. We're gonna say that I killed it. And it's The Hunting Wives by Cobb. Here we are following Sophie, and all we know about her is that she has just moved to like this small town. She has quit her like high-paced job because she wants to spend time at home. She wants to be a housewife basically and a stay-at-home mom. So they move to this small town, but little by little Sophie starts becoming obsessed with the socialite of the town, Margot. She just becomes really obsessed with her, and she knows that one night she's gonna be at a party where she's gonna be there as well. And one way or another, she like finds her way to her little group and becomes part of the socialite crew that's ran by Margot. They end up inviting her one night to come hang out with them. What they like to do is they like to drink and they like to blow off steam by shooting rifles. And she's like, okay, let's do this. I've never done this before. But she, little by little, she starts making her way into the group. Next thing you know, there has been a murder close to the home close to Margot's home. And, you know, things go from there. Now, I enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed the premise of it. You know, women that get together and they shoot to blow off steam. I love that whole part of it, the whole friendship thing. What really aggravated about this book was 2 things. Sophie, my gosh. Now, I totally understand where Sophie's coming from. I was in that position. I used to work a lot. Like when my daughter was a baby, I worked a lot, like double shifts and, you know, just trying to make money. I have a new baby, and, you know, that's how it had been until like my daughter was about 7 years old and my husband comes into my life. And so a year into us being together, I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. We ended up moving to Texas, to a small town, and I mean, it was fine and dandy, but there gets a point where you get bored. I mean, I went from living in Miami, Florida, 30 years old, to moving to this really small town in Texas. And while I liked it and I invited the change, you get bored. So I really related to Sophie. Where I did not relate to Sophie was that, oh my gosh, was she obsessed with Margot. I mean, like, so obsessed to the point where she even would ask herself, why am I doing this? Why am I going through all of this? I have a wonderful husband, I have the perfect life, a wonderful baby, and she's being wrapped up in this life that's just like, it's really turning her life upside down. So in my mind, I'm like, if you know that you have like the perfect husband and you know you have the perfect life, this is everything that you have wanted, like, pull yourself out. I can never see my friends influencing me to a point where I can almost lose my marriage, you know, like my marriage and my kid, and these are the most important things to me. You know, and I get it, not everybody's the same, but that part just irked me so much, was her infatuation with Margot and the decisions that she would make as a grown woman. I mean, I know we all make stupid decisions, but that was one of the things. But the second thing that really got on my nerves was that every scene was so descriptive. And I was talking to my friend Tali about this because we were actually buddy reading this. or I don't think we were buddy reading it, but we read it close to each other. So we were talking about, oh, I had read it, and then I'm like, please get to me when you're reading the book. I'm like, act like you're like filming out a vlog as you're reading the book. So she was doing that. And I asked her, I'm like, did you find the book like super descriptive? I'm like, there's a point there where she's talking about how they're making salsa, like step by step. And I'm just like, and it had nothing to do with the story, like none whatsoever. She's just explaining, she explains like how everybody is standing in the room, how somebody is holding their cup. Like it would just pull me out of the story a lot. Anyways, I ended up giving this one 3 stars. It wasn't horrible. There are a lot of people that really enjoy it. And like I said, I really enjoyed the premise. I love the whole mystery aspect of it because there is a murder. But I just feel like we got this much of the murder mystery and this much of like these dumb women. I don't know how else to explain it, but I enjoyed it for the most part. I know a lot of people that have given this book 5 stars, so you know how to take my review of the book. I'm gonna need an Emily Henry book every year from now on. I read Beach Read last year. It was 5 stars. It left me swooning. And this year I have read People We Meet on Vacation. I have also read When the Skies Fell on Splendor by her, but that's a YA book. People We Meet on Vacation. This was another 5-star read by Emily Henry for me. And I think about Beach Read and I think about People We Meet on Vacation, and although they are totally different stories, they have nothing to do one with the other, I can see the Emily Henry flavor in there. I can't describe her flavor. It's just, it's so amazing. Every time I close one of her books, I feel all the emotions, all the butterflies that I could ever feel in the world. Here we are following these 2 people, these 2 friends, this woman and this man. Let me see what their names are because I have forgotten. Poppy and Alex. And all you know is that something has happened between Poppy and Alex. They were the greatest of friends, but they have had a falling out. They take a summer trip every year, and they haven't taken one in quite a while because, again, they fell out. Can't remember exactly what it was, but she finds a way to get him to go on one last trip in the hopes of recuperating their friendship, and the story goes from there. It is so sweet. It is so heartbreaking at times with Poppy, all of Poppy's feelings of when she has a falling out with Alex and what she goes through. They went from like talking every day and taking trips together to like not talking at all, and she was like heartbroken and she's trying to fix this relationship. So you really felt for Poppy, and Alex was just the best. I remember reading Beach Read and thinking that the male character, the male main character in that book was such a sweetheart, and I felt the same way about Alex. But I just love the way Emily Henry writes relationships, whether it's a love relationship or a friendship relationship. She just knows how to do it right. I ended up giving this book 5 stars. I loved this so much. Finally finished The Stand. I was disappointed by The Stand. I thought The Stand was gonna be one of those like, my gosh, favorite books from Stephen King. I remember reading Cujo, I think shortly before reading this. I am still halfway through Salem's Lot after 2 years of starting that book. So I had high hopes for The Stand. I'm like, this is the one that's gonna pull me back in. Unfortunately, it wasn't. It was, number one, too long. Then again, this is the unedited version. This is the second print of the book, but it's just too long. There were times where I just didn't like the characters. I'm going to tell you what I've been saying ever since. Every time I talk about this book, I have to express my hatred for Harold and Nadine. They are 2 of the worst people. And Harold almost redeemed himself for me, but not really. I did have a lot of emotions with some of the characters, but unfortunately, there were too many characters and I disliked more than I liked. And so, again, I was disappointed. I feel like what you think you're getting in this book, you're really not getting. This is just really about good and evil, and that's it. I know there's a disease and a virus or whatever you want to call it, but it takes a twist early on in the book, or not that early on. It takes such a twist that you almost forget what kind of book you started reading. I wish we would see more of the disease itself. and not about the supernatural, which in fact is what the book is about. I ended up giving it 3 stars. I thought it was going to be a 5-star read.
So sad.
The next book that I read was actually a review copy of Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke. I just talked about this on the live reading sprints as well. I loved this book, but I am still sitting on my review because I have no words. I have no words for this book. It's so very well written. It's so unique. And it's so weird that it sort of leaves you like, wow, but what? It's all about a friendship over an apple peeler. A friendship that's being created over an apple peeler. This person is selling this apple peeler. It's been in her life for a really long time, for years, and it has history between her and her family and this thing. But she's ready to let go of it. Like, she's just like, she's done with it. So she gets to sell it to somebody, but she wants to find somebody that's really going to take care of it, that's going to see the value in this apple peeler. Enter our other character. I can't remember their names and I really don't want to look back. And like I said, I haven't written a review of this yet because I don't know what to say. And so they've formed this relationship over this apple peeler. And yeah, it's just a story of them writing back and forth over this apple peeler. But it was a brilliant book. And I know that in my soul, but I can't articulate what was so perfect about this book. I can't articulate what made it so brilliant. Just know that you have to read this book. It's really not creepy. It is unsettling. It's a super unsettling book, just between the conversations with these two. And then let's take a look at the cover. The cover really does a number on you when you go into the story, because it just, I don't know, it just warps together and it just gives you this unsettling feeling. I hope that I have piqued your interest in this book, even though I really haven't said much other than how brilliant it was. But just know that go read this book. It's a little novella. You can read it in one sitting. Go read it and then you let me know. And let me know if how I'm expressing myself about this book is you can relate to. Just please let me know that. Go read this. It was amazing. I ended up giving this book 5 stars. Then I read The Haunted by Bentley Little. This is my first little book. And I really enjoyed it. I started reading this a couple months ago because I had the audiobook from the library, and then it got taken away because I took too long. And it just sort of sat there, and then I realized that it's part of the Audible, I believe it's the Audible Plus catalog that you can listen to this, and I have Audible Plus. I was like, finally. And I just started it again. I think I was like 60 pages in when I stopped reading it the first time. I don't know if you guys know or if you guys do audiobooks through your library, but the second that your loan is expired, like, it'll just stop playing. And it was right in the middle of like our first real creepy scene, and I was like, bro, really? Anyways, I restarted it when I saw that it was part of Audible Plus, and I really enjoyed it. This gave me the feels, you guys. I really shed tears at the ending of this book. This follows a family, and you're really following the dad. He is our main narrator. And all you know is that he is just tired of where he lives. Like the young kids or the skateboarders of the neighborhood are just getting on his nerves. He wants to find another house, and well, the mom and dad agree. The daughter really doesn't want to, they have a teenage daughter and then the little boy. The teenage daughter doesn't want to hear anything about moving, but at the end of the day, they move, they relocate. But there's something in this new house, and it is creepy and it is haunted. There are some scenes in here that are so creepy and so spine tingling that I just really enjoyed it. The son actually sees what's haunting this house first out of the family, and the poor kid, man, you could just read the fear out of these pages. It was just fantastic. The audiobook, the narrator of the audiobook was great. There was like these scenes, the creepy scenes where he would like lower his voice and give it just that perfect atmospheric voice for the novel. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. I highly, highly recommend it, especially if you like haunted house stories. Now, you guys know I'm not big on haunted house stories, but I have found that some of my favorite novels are a little bit about haunted houses, which is super weird, but they're very, very rare. Those books, those haunted house books that I read that are my favorites because haunted house stories are so rare for me, are so rare for me to love, in other words. But I love this. And then that cover. Now, I was just looking on Amazon the other day. I'm not trying to make this video like 5 hours long, but I was looking on Amazon the other day, and there's another book that I actually put on my wish list that has this same cover. I'll try to find it and add it somewhere here. And it really surprised me because, I mean, the square is the same size, the hands are out, and I found that like odd, and it made me want to read that book and sort of compare them because it's the same exact cover, just different color schemes. So yeah, loved this novel. Next, I read our Stacks of Strange pick for May, which is weird. I mean, we're only 5 books into the month and I'm already reading the Stacks of Strange books, which does not happen. Usually what ends up happening to me is what is that word? What ends up happening to me is that I wait until the day before the live show happens and then I'm like trying to cram the book in, but not this month, because we read House of Hollow and this was an anticipated read for me just because of the cover. This was fantastic. I'm not going to talk too much about it. I gave it 4 stars. I'm going to leave the live show link down below so that you can go and look at it. It is on Rain's channel and you can get all of our perspectives. This just follows 3 sisters and they all go missing when they're really, really young, but they end up coming back. I don't know if it's 10 days later or 30 days later, I forget, but they end up coming back. And when they find them, they're like completely naked and like trying to make it home. Years later, they're all adults, and one of the sisters, the main sister, she's like a celebrity fashion designer, she goes missing, and then it's the 2 sisters that have to go and find her. They don't remember anything of the first time they disappeared. They don't remember anything. So they're trying to piece together if the first disappearances of all 3 of them have anything to do or is the same thing as this disappearance of their sister. So it was good. It was full of mysteries. There was some like creepy scenes there. I really loved it. 4 stars.
I'm not going to talk too much about it. Here, let me tell you the whole damn synopsis. Well, that is the point of these videos, right?
Next, I finally read book 1 of Sweet Tooth, and I'm even in shock right now that I have even read this. I already have book 2 set for Strange-a-thon. If you guys haven't seen my TBR video for Strange-a-thon, or you don't even know what Strange-a-thon is, I will have that linked up in the cards and down below as well. But I read book 1. I loved this so much. I can't wait to watch the adaptation. Here we are just following an end of the world situation where there's been disease and death, and all of the newborn babies are born animal-human hybrids. And so we follow Sweet Tooth, which is, what is his real name? Gus. But they call him Sweet Tooth. And we're just following his sweet little self and what he goes through after his dad dies, and he's just like, what do I do now? Because his dad has been keeping him away from the world because of what he is. So 5 stars, and I cannot wait. I keep holding it like this so that you guys don't get that light glare. I can't wait to watch the adaptation and continue on with the rest of the series. Then I had a little impromptu buddy reading situation with my friend Keely. We read The Perfect Mother by Amy Malloy. This book has been sitting on my shelves for years, and I always kept looking at it. I'm like, I love the cover so much. Like, I love flowers. I don't know why or where my fascination of flowers came in, but it's been like a long love obsession for me. And so I would always look at this cover, and finally my friend puts on her Instagram stories that she's like, she's probably the last person to read this and she's finally gonna read it. And I'm like, I will join you. She actually finished quicker than me because I was in the middle of 4 books when I decided to enter myself in a buddy read unnecessarily, like really. Here we're following a bunch of mothers. They have all either been pregnant or given birth at the same time. It's like a mommy club, and they get together and they just distress after they have their babies. They're just a support group. And one night they decide to have an outing. One of the moms, they start noticing that she's not different, but she's like just down, and one of them confirms that she has told her that she's a little bit depressed, that mom. And so they decide to have a night out, but during this night out, her baby goes missing. And so the whole book is just trying to find out where this baby is, who took this baby, and this whole mystery about it. It was so good. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I'm just reading these book of the month books. For the month of May, I was gonna say June. For the month of May, I read 3 of my book of the month books, which I am super happy about, because even though they're just regular books, they're just like your everyday regular books. I guess because of it's part of a club, like it has book of the month. It's like in my mind separates those books from the rest of it's super weird. I don't know, but it just makes me happy that I read 3 of them for this month. As I quickly replace them with 3 other book of the months this month, but let's not go there. Next, I'm making my way through Brandon Sanderson, and I read the Well of Ascension. I don't know why I felt like I had to sing to you guys, but every time I read a Brandon Sanderson book, I fall more and more and more in love with his world and his writing and his characters. They're just so rich. This is book 2 in the Mistborn series. I am going in chronological order. I'm sorry if I keep repeating that, but if someone clicks on this video and they've never seen my channel before or any of my videos before, I feel the need to say and to inform the newcomers that I am making my way through his world and through Stephen King's world chronologically. So I'm sorry if you're tired of hearing that, but it is what it is. So this is book 2 in the Mistborn series, and it is, I mean, they are chunkers. The Mistborn is just as thick as this one, probably even thicker. So I know that it would be very hard to spoil a book, but going into book 2, if I say anything that is up in limbo in book 1, I don't want to ruin it for you. Just know that I loved this probably even much more than book 1. As of right now, I feel like this is my favorite book in the trilogy, and it's going to continue being, because so much happens in this book. And so much is explained in this book. Basically, we're following Vin, and I'm going to talk about the first book, not this book, but basically we're following Vin. She is part of the Mistborn community, if that's what you can call it, but they have special powers and special abilities to fight with metal. Like metal enhances their power of fighting, and Vin has been one of the most powerful, I forget what they're called, coin fighters. And it's just a whole political world, as his books fantasy usually is. It's a whole political world and defeating evil, and it is action-packed. The characters, as I said before, are so amazing, and you really get attached to them. Needless to say, Brandon Sanderson gets his 3rd 5-star from me in a row. So last month, you guys know I reread, what was it? Shadow and Bone, and this month I read Siege and Storm, which is book 2. 5 stars still. I love Alina. I love Mal. I love even the bad characters. I love them. Again, is another book that I don't want to say too much about, because if you're just reading book 1, you know, there might be a character that you might think dies or is going to die, and I don't want to spoil who's alive or dead or what's going on from book 1 to book 2, but this is another one of those fantasies that's very political, fighting for power. There's an evil entity and there's evil creatures, and it was adapted, and I still haven't seen the adaptation because I want to read all of the books. I'm talking The Shadow and Bone. I want to read the Six of Crows duology, and which the Six of Crows I've already read. It will be a reread, but the only one that won't be reread, what? The only one that won't be a reread is the King of Scars and Rule of the Wolves. That duology, I have not read any of those books yet, so I'm eager to get to those, but 5 stars still. It still has my heart. I still love Leigh Bardugo, and if you haven't read these and you enjoy YA fantasy, I would recommend them, but I'm pretty sure everybody in the world has read this already. Well, not really, because we still have the little kids that are growing up that will one day read these books, so read them, read them, read them. They're fun, they're endearing, they're action-packed, and they are good. But I know not everybody's gonna like them because not every book is liked by everybody. Then I read Burner by Robert Ford. This is another book that I actually requested this book. I requested Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke in this one, and I still have not written reviews for them because I'm just like, what is my life? How can I think of words after reading these books? This has a lot of sex trafficking in it. So I will say that right off the bat, if you are sensitive to sex trafficking, I would say stay away from this one. This is a very, very harsh book. We are following 2 characters. We're following Iris and we're following Audrey. Now, when we first start the book, you know that one of the characters, which is Iris, you know that she has done something very wrong, and in her mind, whatever she did was justified. She is under the impression that because she suffered in such a way, she has the right to inflict this kind of suffering. She is like lashing out. And then you're following Audrey, and Audrey's life and Iris's life are intertwined in a very, very gruesome way. And these 2 women don't know about each other until they have to face each other. And it was a rough read. It was so good. It was so engaging. It was so heartbreaking. Robert Ford's writing, I fell in love with it. I think this is my first Robert Ford, but it won't be my last. This is horror in the sense that horrific real life events happen in this book. And that's some of my favorite horror, is the horror that can happen to any one of us the minute we walk out the door. There's something about a real life event that can change your life forever. There's something about that kind of horror that really, really gets in me. And anyways, this was fantastic. I gave it 5 stars. Thank God you're right here. Getting down to the last 2 books. The next one that I read was Shadow of the Vulture by Regina Garza Mitchell. This is one of the splatter westerns. We are continuing on with book 9 of the splatter western by Death's Head Press. You guys know how I feel about these books. I love them all. I mean, there's been a couple of them. One that was DNF'd and another one that was kind of, you know, but I still enjoyed the one that was kind of because it had tough topics and, you know, tough racism to read. But either way, I have enjoyed the majority of them. So I'm going to read to you a little portion of the synopsis from the back because I feel like right now I can't explain to you what this book is about and my mind is growing fuzzy. As Americans move westward toward their manifest destiny, they disrupt lives, steal, and murder. What happens when that brutality clashes with witchcraft and the supernatural in the small town of Soledad? We have witches and we have vultures and we have a lot of supernatural aspects, and this takes place in Texas. And while I can't remember much of the story, even though it was such a short book, I remember, and even writing in my review, I talked about how I wish this book would have been a little longer because we're sitting here at 95 pages, and although it was good, it sat on its own and it was really powerful, I feel like I would have enjoyed a little bit more into the characters and a little bit more into our supernatural creatures than what I got. It left me wanting more, but either way, it was a fantastic read. I ended up giving you this one 4 stars. And the last and final book is a book that I've been reading for a couple months. It was an ARC that I got on NetGalley. And I never finished it on time, surprise, surprise, but then I ended up getting it on Book of the Month. It was When the Stars Go Dark by Paula McLean. We're following Anna Hart, and you know that she has just gone through a really bad incident in her life, and she finds herself fleeing to her childhood town of Mendocino. As soon as she gets there and she's kind of like trying to mingle with like her old friends, she runs into her friend, a police friend, Will, and there is a missing girl. But it really hits home to her because when she was young, one of their friends, Will being part of this group, one of their friends go missing. And I guess this really impacted her and really stirred her life. I mean, she went through stuff. She was in the foster care system. Her real mom was like a drug addict and they find her dead. So she's been through it. And she has a heart for girls that go missing because of that event that she went through, and because as a child she had 2 siblings that she got pulled away from. So she's gone through it, and every time there's this missing girl, it reminds her of this story of her childhood, and it also just brings all this compassion to her. So she asked Will, hey, can I join in on you, and can I join in with you and find this girl? And they set out together to find this missing girl. As they're finding this girl, there's this other girl that goes missing in this other town. Now this is where the book gets a little bit tricky, because I feel like while we're looking for this one girl in the book, I can't remember her name, we have this other girl missing, and they go to this town and they're trying to find out if they're sort of like connected in a way or not. And I just felt like that other story was a little much, and it made the story longer than it needed to be. But with that being said, it was still a very enjoyable storyline, especially when we get to that point in the story where we're working up to, you know, that climax moment of the book. Really brought it, because this is a really slow burn, and there are moments like that other case that I'm talking about, and just little other aspects of the book that seem unnecessary, but in one way or another adds to the atmosphere of the book. But I really did end up enjoying, even though it took me almost 2 months to finish this book, I really did enjoy it. And knowing now the ending that it had, I feel like if I would have known that prior to finishing or to starting the book, I would have enjoyed the book a lot more. But anyways, it was a really good book. I like the characters, I like the setting of it, and this cover, I love it so much. It's very simple. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. So that's it, you guys. That is everything that I read for the month of May. And let me know in the comment section down below what you read for the month of May. What was your favorite or your least favorite book? I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!